let's dig into the papers this morning quickly. Let's get on to the business day, and I'll go to Mr. C for this one because this looks like a brief you should have. But if you don't have it, I don't know, probably maybe because you're not a SAN yet. But let's get into it. INEC, according to the business day, says INEC postpones governorship, state houses of assembly polls. Now, the intro here it says that the Independent National Electoral Commission has postponed the governorship and state houses of assembly elections slated for March the 11th. That's more like on Saturday, so it's been moved to, let's see now, to the 18th of March. That announcement broke sometime last night. I guess, Mr. C, you were already, your PVC, you were looking at it the last time you went to sleep, but waking up this morning, you have to wait for one more week before you use it. So take it away, Mr. C.
Okay, thank you, Mas. So, INEC has postponed the gubernatorial and state houses of assembly elections from Saturday, the 11th of March, 2023 to Saturday, the 18th of March, 2023. And this is because of the order that was granted by the Election Petition Tribunal in an application brought by the Labour Party asking for an order permitting it to inspect the Beavers machines. Now, INEC, through its legal team, opposed that application on the grounds that it needed the machines to be reconfigured for the gubernatorial elections. Now, after hearing arguments from both sides, the Election Petition Tribunal said INEC should go ahead to reconfigure the machines, but the parties would be allowed to carry out a digital forensic examination of the Beavers devices. Now, what is not stated very clearly in the judgment or in the report of the judgment is when this digital forensic examination should take place. Because the tribunal did also say that INEC should issue certified true copies of the results obtained from the Beavers machines. Now, the reason why the application was granted, from my understanding of what transpired, was INEC represented to the tribunal that the information had not only been backed up, it could not be tampered with or lost, and that therefore there was nothing to be afraid of because the Labour Party had stated in its affidavit before the tribunal that there was a possibility that the data could be lost. Now, because they did not controvert the INEC position, which in any event they couldn't have because it would have meant diving deep into the realm of speculation, the tribunal granted the order. Now, here are my thoughts. The order has been granted, yes. And now there are three parties that have been granted leave of court to inspect the Beavers machines. They're the APC,
the Labour Party,
and the PDP, and the Labour Party. So three different parties are going to inspect digitally 176,000 Beavers machines. Today is the 9th of March.
Yes.
It is exactly 8 days before the next election. It is inconceivable that all three parties would have finished conducting this physical digital forensic examination of all the Beavers machines before the 18th. It's inconceivable.
So you feel there would be from what you're saying, it's likely there would be another.
I would be extremely
shift of the goalpost again.
Yeah. So here's how it's going to play out. The parties need to examine the Beavers machines. Certified true copies have to be printed. INEC is now saying they need to back up that information, meaning they have not yet started that process. I don't know how long it's going to take them. So there are three things. Forensic examination by all the parties, or in fact, four things. The first is the forensic examination. Second part is the issuance of the certified true copies of whatever is obtained from those documents, and it's for all three parties. Then INEC has to back up the information. Then you reconfigure. It could be argued that INEC will back up, then they issue then they can carry out the forensic examination. However, in whatever order this plays out, whether it's the backup first or the forensic examination first, the 18th of March is not a feasible date, and I'm disappointed that INEC, knowing fully well what lies ahead, picked a 1 week adjournment.
No, but also looking at it from this angle, that the argument was between today, tomorrow, it will be, they just can't conclude the reconfiguration of that, because if you don't do it, you still have data there, for the presidential election, which would, alter whatever they intend to do. So that's more like the reason why they have to, do it.
Okay, so Omas, INEC has left many questions unanswered with their conduct and preparation towards these elections. Now, there are a lot of questions. I'll just take 2 or 3. One, why do these machines need to be reconfigured? How long does it take to reconfigure these machines? Are these machines going to be reconfigured concurrently, or are you going to do them piecemeal or in phases? So there are a lot of burning questions which have no ready answers, and it begs the question, INEC, you had 4 years to prepare for this election. This has been less than stellar, this has been less than satisfactory, and it's a big disappointment, because if you're now speaking about backup, very quickly, the ordinary man buys a new mobile phone.
Yeah.
On the spot, he can configure it to back up at regular intervals. Now, INEC has not told us this information they want to back up. Where are they backing it up to? Is it a physical server? Is it a server online in the cloud? Is it one server? Is it multiple servers? Will the parties and their agents have access to those servers? There are a lot of unanswered questions.
Many questions raised there, Mr. C, but quickly, we need to get back to the listener right now to let them know they can be part of the conversation. We'd like to read WhatsApp messages only at this hour on 0809-444-0981. It's freshly pressed. So the next story is connected. So you're having this next story also, Mr. C, before I go to Bubani.
Okay.
It says, court grants INEC request to reconfigure, and which, of course, that's linked already to the fact that the election now has been postponed because they've got like 176,000 beavers. That's if you exclude the fact that all of them have additional spares like of 2.
Hmm?
Of course, the PUs would have one just in case you don't have. These are the things you'd have to work on.
I'm not sure that's correct, Thomas.
Okay.
So INEC officials will need to come and tell us, and that is Nigerians, how many beavers machines were ordered, how many were delivered, how many are in their custody, how many are working. So this reconfiguration exercise, sadly, I haven't seen full judgment, so we don't even know when it's supposed to start. Now, INEC had previously suggested it would need 5 days to reconfigure the machines. Now, excuse me, if anyone turned out on election day, those machines look like handheld tablets. Why do you need 5 solid days? That's 120 hours to reconfigure what looks like a tablet.
Well, many things we may not understand because you don't have such an exotic tablet as you want to see it. But Mr. C, now from the Premium Times, we've got this one coming in here that says, appeal court orders INEC to grant the President-elect Bola Tinubu access to inspect beavers machines.
Okay, so very quickly, Mr. Tinubu's legal team applied ex parte for an order allowing the team to inspect all the electoral materials, including the...
Okay, we'll quickly go on a break after this time, and then when we come back, Mr. C, you would dig into that other story quickly.
Consolidated Hallmark Insurance. Anxiety away. Value assured.
Oh, you have advert now? That's what he said now. Isn't that what I'm thinking? So let me... So I'm going to stop it here. What we do? There's network now, I see.
love with action. Protect everything you care about with Consolidated Hallmark Insurance. Visit chiplc.com to get started. If you love it, insure it with Consolidated Hallmark Insurance.
Smooth 98.1.
It's still freshly pressed on smooth. It is still freshly pressed on smooth 98.1 FM. I got Mr. C here with me, and Bubemi is also here. Now, before we went on that break, you were going to speak on the access granted the president-elect now to access INEC server.
Okay, so very quickly, whenever there's an election petition filed, each party to that petition, especially from the party that sponsored a political candidate and or the candidate, has the right to apply for an order of the courts granting it leave to inspect the electoral materials that were used for the election and any of these smart machines or smart devices. So Mr. Tinubu's team has applied for leave to inspect the electoral materials and the Beavers machines, and that order has been granted. And this order is similar to the orders that were given to both the PDP and the LP. So it's a straightforward routine order, and these orders that have been granted to the parties will impact, like I said earlier, will impact on INEC's ability and turnaround time to not only back up but also reconfigure the Beavers machines. And the 18th of March is seriously in doubt now.
We just hope that the candidates and president-elect there won't be a clash of timetable.
No. So no, what happens? No, you don't do it at the same time. So each party gets a slot, and then so a reasonable period of time for the education of listeners. Even if they're moving at top speed, we probably look at least 5 to 7 working days.
Okay, let's talk money matters, because they say money, time is money. So Bubemi, I come to you with this one from the Nation newspaper, and it says, old notes, Emefiele in contempt for not directing banks. And the story reads partially here saying, the Central Bank of Nigeria CBN Governor Emefiele is in contempt already of court if he has not issued a directive to banks to pay and accept the old 1,500 naira notes as ordered by the Supreme Court. That's according to a legal luminary who should know. They're quoting a law professor, Ishe Sage. That's over to you now, Bubemi.
Okay, so the federal government, the Supreme Court rather, approved last week Friday, for the old 500 and 1,000 naira notes to come back into circulation. And the usual practice, if you remember from when the president announced about 2-3 weeks ago that the 200 naira would come back into circulation together with the new note, the CBN issued a directive to the banks, but this hasn't happened at this time. So for largely early this week, a lot of banks were not paying until about yesterday, I think, when I discovered that a few banks had started paying some of the old notes. Now, because the banks have not received the directive, it's not quite clear whether the CBN is going to comply with this or not. And the banks are subject to the CBN and not necessarily the Supreme Court. They can't take that action by themselves. But one thing I did note from someone who went to the bank yesterday to try and withdraw some money was that he was told that yes, he could get the old notes. However, if he wanted to deposit the new notes, he would have to go through the previously advised CBN process, whereby he would have to fill out a form, go on that website that had been created by the CBN to document the old notes and everything. So one wonders whether how effective this process will be, because if the old notes are going to be, if the old 500 and 1,000 notes are supposed to be legal tender up until the end of the year together with the new notes, then if I'm going to deposit the new notes in the bank easily, I should be able to deposit the old notes in the bank easily as well. I'm not quite sure what the CBN governor's position is, or what the delay, I'll assume it's a delay, is in communicating to the banks about issuing out the old 500 and 1,000 notes. But then it's very important that this is done very quickly to avoid all forms of ambiguity, especially with customers. If you go around town now, the average bank outside, you see queues. People are waiting to withdraw money. People are still getting 5,000 naira over the counter or 10,000 naira over the counter. And this action is supposed to eliminate the sufferings that people have been facing over the last few weeks.
And he's not speaking about, acceptance. That word, breaking the golden silence now, the CBN governor, means even when you get this old news from the banks, people out there are still very reluctant, not willing to accept it as.
Exactly, because the CBN, they haven't, if there's no formal communication, people don't know exactly what it is that's going to happen. If you remember back from when the deadline was moved, there was a bit of confusion about the notes that people had. Some people were rejecting it, and that's sort of like what we're potentially facing or going to face at this point in time.
Okay, well, let's just hope that they break the silence on time so that Nigerians can begin to heave a sigh of relief. But we still got this one still connected to you. This time, not money matters, but it's also about workers, and that's coming from Imo State. From the Guardian newspaper, it says here that the NLC shuts down Imo, grounds Owerri airport over the attack on workers by the state government. And partially here, dig into the story, says the Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC, collapsed the operational activities in Imo State over continued harassment and brutalization of workers by the state government. This is, they say, as part of efforts to press home its demands until infractions instigated are remedied, NLC is saying.
So the NLC has told its members, essentially the state government staff, to abstain from work, and they've also directed that the airport would also be closed. Now, largely part of the reason, aside from just the brutalization, is also the fact that the NLC says that some members are being owed for up to 20 months of salaries because they've been termed as ghost workers. Now, there's a bit of, on the NLC's perspective, it would appear as if it's some sort of victimization, although the government's perspective on that is not clear. Also tied to this story is the fact that the NLC has been accusing the government of trying to impose a new leadership on them rather than allowing them to go through their democratic process.
Yes.
The state government has said that the NLC should not politicize the issue. The issue being the salaries owed to the people considered as ghost workers, because they believe that they're trying to weaponize this issue to turn the state workers against the government. What is clear, however, is that there is an issue on ground and the government really needs to address it. Now, the NLC is the only one that can tell its members to go on strike. And then they're also the only people who can call their members off the strike. It's not looking like they're going to call the members off the strike until the concerns they have been addressed.
Okay, well, let's say, and these days, because of the season we are in, the government too would also be afraid that it's for political reasons.
Exactly. So everything has a political connotation.
Until we get out of this. So let's begin to wait for the WhatsApp messages to come in on 0809-444-0981, but we still got time to pick up this paper now, and that's this time going to Mr. C. And this one says, from the Punch newspaper, Buhari, Sanwo-Olu, others mourn as hoodlums kill, guard, burn shops. Now it says a 65-year-old security guard was shot dead by hoodlums whom traders accused of setting their shops ablaze at the spare parts market somewhere in Kirikiri, Olodia Papa in Ajegunle area of Lagos State. Well, Mr. C, the season again, what really is happening in this time? Markets just going up in the other day, Maiduguri, we heard from Maiduguri, a market went up in flames, and here we are again. Hoodlums with a label.
Okay, so thank you, Amas. And our thoughts go out to the family of the deceased individual. Who was it named? And this is something the media needs to stop. Every human life is valuable, it's priceless. So we must start putting names to people. In other countries, in other climes, that's the proper thing to do. Now, having said that, this attack is regrettable because we understand from one of the traders that an attempt was made last week, Thursday, to burn the market. And these people described as hoodlums were seen wearing suits. I don't know any hoodlum who wears a suit. And suits are not the natural attire of hoodlums.
Mr. C, suits don't look good on hoodlums. Is that what you want? If that's what you want to say, then you just put it out there.
It is unlikely
to look good on hoodlums
that you will run into a hoodlum wearing a suit.
May I just ask you to pause for a moment here? We've got messages, tons of it lying here before they say we didn't get to read their messages. On WhatsApp here, it says, "Hi, Smooth family. People aren't accepting the old notes, bus drivers, business people, etc. I don't even understand why commercial banks are paying it over the counter. The CBN were quick to come out and say they didn't order the banks to pay, but there is still the elephant in the room regarding the Supreme Court ruling." That's from Henry from Lagos Island. I see Joseph Menyi saying, "Good morning, Freshly Pressed, and your vibrant analyst, Mr. C, and Gubem is also here too. Why is it that the president and the CBN are playing God and adamant to obeying the Supreme Court judgment, just defending deafening silence from the powers that be?" My only what it says here, little advice is that this seeds of disobedience to court judgment would one day become a norm that no citizen would obey it. May God help Nigeria. Joseph Menyi, Silver Estate from Lagos here. Okay, we just have time to pick in one message before we go for a quick break, and then we'll still come back to get the messages in. Okay, thank you so much. I see Vincent here. Thank you for your messages, Vincent. And next I see this one here from Erica from Ikoyi says, "Why can't three parties be allowed to do the forensic audit together?" Mr. C, it says, "Wouldn't there be fight somewhere along if three parties go into that room to do forensic audit?" Well, let's see. We'll come back to get this Idima Prusa from Surulere after we pay. We just go on this break, and then we'll come back to close up the show.
So the reason why you can't get them doing it at the same time is this. Remember, they're going to bring experts. So experts will differ as to methodology, as to approach and everything. So imagine that you said there are some polling units, some local governments that are contentious. So you want to imagine that everyone wants to examine first.
What's going on? Studio. It's still Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1 FM. Let's quickly close up the Freshly Pressed this morning by getting in the messages as you've sent them in. Let's see this one from Idima Prusa from Surulere. Says, "What would bring sufferhead to Nigerians? This government would rush to do it, but what brings joy to us, they would drag their feet. Why not obey Supreme Court judgment and stop our suffering?" Thank you so much for the message. I see this one from Ro saying, "Wishing ZB all the best to get well as soon as possible." That's Ro here. May ZB may be a good, okay, but I think, all right, thank you so much for the message here. And next, let's see. Andrew here says, okay, I don't think that Emefiele or CBN is contempt of the Supreme Court because they are not a part of the Supreme Court case as such. CBN could not have made any order then. What else? Dami from Ikoyi, I see your message from, it says, "A colleague hasn't come to work today because she's number 158 at a local bank branch and doesn't have cash." Well, the story is the same. Maybe Mr. C also too. If I ask him, I don't know which number it would be when he leaves the studio. I also see messages from Gary Newton. I see Austin here. I also see Olatunde Akinwumi from Oregon. Thank you so much for your messages. Gentlemen, our time is fast spent already. We must leave it here and come back tomorrow again to get the papers in. Gubemi, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much, Omar.
And I want to say thank you to Mr. C, who would have to keep around until when we're done with politics later in the day. But for now, we'll be right back on the other side of the hour for the show. It's time for The Grapevine. Stay tuned. It's still Smooth 98.1.